just a second. Hey everyone, it is Keeping It Real with Nikki and Jim. How's everyone doing today? Hey Jim.
Hey, I'm doing very good.
Good.
And happy Wednesday.
Happy Wednesday. We're almost to Friday.
Yay,
Anyway,
yay.
we have Kerri Selby in today, and so we're going to be what are we talking about today, Jim?
Oh, we're going to talk about we're going to go into timelines. We're going to go into closing dates, contingencies, and I think one of the cool things is the purchase price. We're bringing people up now to where maybe they found a house, but we're going to start negotiations. How are we going to present an offer?
And that starts at the offer. Exactly. That's exactly right. So we're going to start at the offer and talk about all the negotiation points that we can possibly negotiate on today, or at least we're going to hit a lot of them, right? Not all of them, but at least a lot of them, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and bring Kerri in. Hi, Kerri. Welcome
Hello.
back.
Thank you.
So we're talking about negotiation points. So when you write an offer, there's all kinds of things that you can negotiate on. And obviously Jim just commented on the first one, which is the price, the purchase price. So Jim, why don't you go ahead and take it away?
Well, the purchase price, how do you know you're offering what the house is really worth? I think that's up to your real estate agent to do a comparative market analysis. In other words, to try to find what homes that are this square footage, this amount of bedrooms or bathrooms, is what you're paying for, is what you're going to offer a competitive market price for that house, which is really important. And we as realtors, or whoever you're working with as a realtor, will hopefully do a really good job at finding that for you.
Right, because we don't want to overpay, right? A good broker would never have you overpay.
Exactly. Right? And we're representing you to try to help you get the best price that you can on that house. So there's a lot to know, and that is to kind of know what's going on in the market. We just came through a time where homes were getting bid up left and right, and so that would affect how much we're going to offer, or what contingencies we're going to put on it, which we'll cover in a minute. But purchase price is probably the biggest thing that you need to get right.
Right, exactly. And then, we've been kind of talking about, the past like 6-12 months, whatever. I mean, it kind of dropped off like July, I guess, of last year is when kind of things started really changing and the rates started going up quite a bit. Kerri, how's the rates looking now? Since we're talking about rates real quick.
Their rates are holding as they are. They're just down a slight bit since last Friday. And the slide that was just put up there, mortgage rates approaching a 4-month low, which is wonderful news for us and all of you out there that are shopping, because it gives you more buying power. And the thing that's going to really predict whether or not the rates drop is a report that will be coming out tomorrow from CPI, which is the Consumer Price Index. Currently, we're at 6%. And the way that they judge these numbers is really based on where inflation has sat for the last 6 months. And so we've seen inflation go down a little bit, which will hopefully lower interest rates. So we'll have a really good indicator of that tomorrow. But just came off of a great call with Barry Habib, who is a leader in the industry of real estate and mortgage. And he's really predicting that in the next quarter, we're going to see rates drop and be back in that 5% range again.
Oh, that'd be so wonderful. That would be super cool. I mean, I know I've had a lot of buyers starting reaching out. So, I mean, that totally makes sense. And, that totally does make sense. But it was a different market 6 months ago. I mean, 6 months ago, it was like I remember having conversations with a buyer that I was working with, and it was like, a year ago, I should say, you don't want to ask for home inspections, which I would never say because it's the wrong thing to do. But, you might not want to ask for home inspection. You might want to offer even more than they're listing the house price if you want to get it. You don't want to ask for seller concessions. And then kind of last late spring, early summer, things kind of shifted. And guess what, buyer, you can start asking for all this stuff again. Good, let's go for it. So let's talk about some of those other negotiating points besides price. I mean, closing deadline. I mean, you can ask for a home buyer contingency at this point in time. I mean, at least, I mean, there's not a whole, I mean, homes are staying on market a little bit longer. They're being decreased. So if if you have a home that you have to sell, for instance, and you want to, I've got to sell my house first before I can buy this house. A lot of sellers are willing to think about that now. Jim, what's another thing?
Yeah, I think the nice thing about right now is that you can have an inspection contingency where that's so important. Say it's $400. What are inspections normally right now? Say they're $400. I just a couple years ago, and Niki sold me my house, but we put a inspection contingency, which say it cost $400. But what they found was that I needed a new roof. And so for $400, in essence, I got a $20,000 new roof. And so inspections are really important. Before, as you were talking about the market a couple years ago, people were waiving those. And sellers were taking offers that had the least amount of contingencies. The great thing about the market now is that you can put some of those in, which really save you a lot of headaches in the end.
Yes, especially with the inspection contingency, there's so much that you don't know, and having the right home inspector to get out and do a pest inspection. And we're going to bring in an inspector here in a week or two, but
which will be really good.
It's so huge. I mean, you really, really do want that person to come in and tell you everything you can find out about that home before you buy it, because sometimes there's things that are hidden you just don't know about, or you wouldn't see with the naked eye. So having that professional in there is really helpful. I know that there's other things like seller concessions. That's another big one. I mean, a lot of times, we have a lot of buyers who have great credit, right, Kerri?
Yes.
Yes, but they don't have cash on hand. And so, they're needing to have that extra help getting that. And so now we can, again, hey, seller, your house isn't selling. Can we have some of those? Can we have some help with this buyer with the closing costs to help pay for some of these costs that are, and so that way I can just afford this payment that I need to do. So that's another one. And then Kerri's got a really cool one too about the 2-for-1 buy down. Do you want to tell us about that? Because that's like kind of a new, well, I don't know if it's a new thing, but it's been something that's been really popular lately to help a lot of the buyers get into homes.
Most definitely. It's actually something that's been around for a long time. But as you guys were talking about before, those things were all waived. Sellers were selling their homes above list price. And so they didn't have to worry about a seller's concession or what the rates were or helping somebody buy it down. But honestly, right now in today's market, you're saying homes are sitting on the market for a long period of time, which in essence forces sellers to lower the price of their home. So what a 2-1 buy down does, instead of reducing the price of your home, you can actually offer a concession for a buyer to get a 2-1 buy down. And what that means is if the current rate is 6.25%, the first year, the buyer is going to be able to have a 4.25% interest rate. And the second year, it's going to be 5.25%. And so the savings can be almost $500 a month, which is huge to somebody, especially people that are payment sensitive. You do have to qualify at the 6.25%. The difference is what the payment's going to be. The great thing about it is that money sits in escrow and it pays the interest out monthly, the difference between the 6.25% and the 4.25%, and that money stays the buyer's money. So when we do go to refinance it, it's just sitting in escrow and can pay for the new closing costs for the refinance. So you're doing a refinance for no money out of pocket, or a lot of times we'll just work it into the loan amount. So you can choose to have the closing costs paid for from that, which is a game changer for a lot of people in that way.
That really does help a lot.
Yeah,
and say we're going to lower the price $10,000 and the seller concession we need is only $8,900, and they offer $10,000 in seller credit, then they're offering $8,900 for the temporary buy down and then $1,100 towards the buyer's closing costs. So it's definitely a bonus and will help get somebody into a home if your home's not moving on the market.
Okay, so I always like to have us kind of explained a second time, just because sometimes, like, especially with I don't do the financing part. That's not my forte. So I always like to have it really explained. So the 2-for-1 buy down. So the first year, it's a little bit more than the next year, and then the third year it drops back down to the 6% rate. So it's like, for instance, like, let's just say that it was 4% for the first year, and then it goes to 5% the second year, and then for the third year it goes back up to like the 6% rate that you originally qualified at. Is that what I'm understanding?
That's correct. And
Okay.
most people will not stay in the loan that long because, like we said at the top of this call, we're looking for rates to drop. And so people are going to refinance out of this loan. It's a temporary fix for rates being so high at the moment.
Hey, Kerri, I got another zinger question for you that I didn't prepare you for.
Okay.
What's a normal percentage if you were going to refinance your house? What's a normal percentage of a drop that you'd want, or that would make sense if you're going to do a refinance on your house? So, for instance, like, if you got a rate at 6%, what would be a good amount to think about, or what percentage?
At least 0.5%.
Okay, y'all heard that. So keep that in mind if you just bought a house from me. Okay. Okay. So Jim, what are some other things we can negotiate on?
One of the things I did, Nikki, back when we did this house, was I found out that this house that I bought fell out of contract because it didn't have high-speed internet. So I thought, well, that's a great negotiating point. I was the buyer, Nikki was the real estate agent. And so I asked her, I said, well, can we use that as leverage that, this is why it fell out? And she said, yeah, that's a great idea. Let's do it. So I found out how much high-speed internet was going to cost, and it ended up being a little bit of a difficult thing. But basically, so they raised the price of the house just a little bit, but it was going to cost $10,000. So I got to keep that $10,000 cash. So that was a nice negotiating point too, knowing maybe a little bit about the market, knowing a little bit about what the situation is with that particular house. And that's where a real good agent can come in and help negotiate. We're there to represent you, the buyer. And so we're going to try everything that we can to negotiate for your benefit.
Right, exactly. And don't forget timelines too. I mean, if you need to close at a certain day because, you're going to leave town or whatever. I mean, those are all negotiating points. Who you want to use for your escrow and your title. Well, your escrow people, I should say, not your title people, but your escrow people. Your home inspection. I mean, there's all kinds of things that you can negotiate as far as timelines and that too, even under earnest money, which we talked about last week. So.
And remember, I did a deal with you earlier last year, Nikki, where we won a deal because we were able to close in 14 days.
Yes, definitely. I mean, and having the right team and set up is huge, because if there's some that are able to do it, there's a lot that aren't. So having the right team is definitely important. So and there's different programs too. So I always say, talk to your lender. Like, if you're looking at the financing stuff, talk to them, because sometimes they have programs that a lot of times are new. We don't know about necessarily as real estate. I mean, we usually find out about them, but it usually it trickles down to us too, kind of thing. But talking to your lenders and getting that information is so important.
Hey, Nikki, I know the answer to this kind of, but what if we're talking about preparing a earnest or a purchase and sale agreement, making an offer. What if somebody came in and just wanted to make a ridiculous lowball offer? What does that do to the process? Because I think a lot of people think they can just come in but it's a smarter game than that.
I mean, what you hope is that the other side will come back and give you a counter offer. I mean, everybody has a number that they're trying to hit. So if you are, the seller and you're getting that offer, rather than just saying no, sometimes it's more helpful sometimes to come back and say, here's a counter. I mean, I guess if it's ridiculously low, it's like, this person's not even, they're insulting me, as a lot of how buyers or how a lot of sellers will take that. They're insulting me because they're giving me such a low offer. But really, It's an opportunity. The way I look at it, it's an opportunity to come back and say, this is what, we're willing, we're trying to meet you here in the middle. Can you come up a little bit? At least see if that person's even able to do that.
Yeah.
Did I
And I
answer your
think,
question?
yeah, it does. And I think another thing that's really helpful too is the communication between the buyer's agent, which would be us representing you, the buyer, and the listing agent. Because I think one of your last sales too, that you wrote a letter, had the, it's important too, maybe even to have the purchaser write a letter of why they want the house or whatever. You went back to the listing agent, and because of your extra effort with that, you got the deal.
Yeah, you do. And I mean, and having the broker who will call and definitely talk, I mean, that definitely helps a lot of times.
Yeah.
I mean, because, we're all people and we all have, we try to build those relationships and stuff. And, and going in with the right attitude and the right, positive energy and stuff, that really makes a difference.
And I can say as a lender, I'm always happy to call on behalf of my client and speak to the listing agent and let them know about this pre-approval that I've issued and how strong it is, and how we have prime borrowers who are just ready to go. They're responsive. They get things done quickly so that we can close on time. And that's an added benefit as well.
Oh yeah, I definitely agree. Having your lender, I mean, being on the listing side of it, having a lender who knows what they're doing and, on the other side and stuff like that, who knows what they're doing is huge. That was actually one of my last accounts, because it was a double contingency, home selling contingency. And so it was like, I mean, having an amateur at that would not have worked. And it had to be somebody who really knew what they were doing and was going to be strong and make sure that everybody was on, and communication, making sure everybody was communicated and tell everybody what they're doing. So
yeah, that's the one I was referring to. One more thing I just wrote down, and it's kind of going backwards just a little bit, but let's say we went back to, so Kerri, you're saying the interest rates are going to go down. Let's say we went back to multiple offers and then preparing, proposals a little bit different. Could you address, Niki, just an escalation clause? Let's just say, there was going to be 5 offers. How would an escalation clause help on that?
So, and that's, yeah, I know. And we actually, I don't know. I mean, I'm seeing a lot of buyers starting to come back into the market. So, we could be like that maybe the summer again. I mean, our inventory is still, I think, 1.7 months out or something.
Right,
and
exactly.
And that could definitely change. And I think a lot of, especially if rates drop, I mean, a lot of buyers might come back into the market. And I mean, I don't know if it's going to be quite as crazy as the past couple of years, but, I could definitely see it getting busier. So there could be that instance. And what an escalation clause does is, let's say that, you sit down with your buyer and the house is worth $500,000 and there's multiple offers and you really, really want this house. So you might offer, like, I want to offer up to 525, let's say, right? So that's your maximum cap that you can go to. And you say, I want to go up to 525. I would, if I can get this house, I really want to do it. And so it's an escalation clause. If the other side only offers like 515,000, then depending on what amount you go over that, that amount, that the amount the other side's offering, like you put a dollar amount. So like for $1,000 more. So instead of paying 525, you would have got it for 516. Does that make sense? Yeah. Sometimes I think I talk in circles because it kind of is a circle.
No, like you're going to say, I will pay $1,000 more than the highest offer, up to a cap of 525.
Exactly. And so if that other person only, if the house was listed at 500 and they offered 515, you'd be paying 516.
Correct. Exactly.
And what's really important is always make sure that, that you get the copy of that other, the other side is supposed to show you what the other offer was. So that way you have you can see that too. And that's really important.
Awesome.
Good question. Good questions. I like it.
Very good. Because because there's still a low inventory in the market right now and interest rates go down, it could produce, multiple offers again. So
it could.
Yeah, that's why I asked. Anyway, very good.
All right. Well, you guys, thank you very much for joining us today. Kerri, it's a pleasure as always. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah,
thanks for having me again. I appreciate it.
Okay. Yeah. And next week, we are going to talk more about being in contract and some of the obligations once you're under contract that you have to the contract. So we're going to talk about that and we'll see you next week.
Excellent.
See you next week.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. See you next week.
Bye.